Live stream. All right. Yes, indeed. It is 7 o'clock. It's just about 7 o'clock here on this fine Tuesday evening. It is Tuesday, November 28th, 2023. It's just about 7 according to my watch. Hey, welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight. Now it's officially 7 o'clock. And I'm live streaming. I'm on two platforms today. I'm on YouTube and I'm on Facebook. And so I would love to know if you're out there. I can see I got my setup going to where right in front of me is my 27-inch iMac. So you are the little green dot at the top of my screen. And when I look over here, I can see the comments from both the YouTube stream and the Facebook stream. So I would love to know if you're out there. Drop a comment in the chat. Let me know what platform you're on. Actually, I can see that from your chat, but let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm here in my home studio, Apple Valley, Minnesota, in the South Metro, just south of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I decided that for the next 4 Tuesday nights, I'm going to go live 7 p.m. Central Time to just do an experiment. I'm calling this a live stream contemplative art practice, where what I want to do is create an original piece of art around the theme of this week of Advent. So Advent, for those of you who might not know, Advent is a season in the liturgical calendar. It's 4 weeks that lead up to Christmas. And Advent is a Latin word that means the occurrence of something or the coming of something. And so these 4 weeks are spent in anticipation of the coming of God incarnate in Jesus Christ at Jesus' birth. And that's what we celebrate at the Christ Mass at Christmas. And so typically in most churches in lectionaries around Advent, the scripture readings come from Hebrew prophets. And we try to get into the headspace and the heart space of the Jewish people who had just experienced 70 years of exile. The Empire of Babylon had come in and destroyed their city, destroyed the beautiful temple that Solomon had built, and just tore it all to the ground and took the people of Jerusalem and of Judah to captivity hundreds of miles away in Babylon. And they were there for 70 years, like a full 2 generations of people. And then they came back and they were just, bewildered and exasperated and didn't know what to do. And they were looking forward to the coming of the promised one called the Messiah. And so it's this season of waiting and hoping and longing for, looking for. And of course, as Christians, we believe that Jesus is the fulfillment of that promise of the coming Messiah. And so each week in Advent, there is a different theme. And the theme for this week is hope. And so without any further ado, what I'm going to do is I've prepared my screen for you so that you can watch me create a piece of art. So what I've decided to do is I've got my camera so you can still kind of see me. It kind of takes me back to my caricature days where I would draw people and this is what they would see looking over the drawing table at me. And then I've got my side camera here so you can see what my hand is actually doing. So you're connected to the human element of this and not just staring at my screen. But I also got some chill music playing. And so I'm going to start drawing, trying to imagine this theme of hope. So let's see, let me open up. I got a new layer open up here. I'm going to just start drawing with a pencil. And I may or may not talk during this, but I'll kind of keep you looped into what I'm thinking about, what I'm doing. If you have any questions or if you have any comments as I'm going along, feel free to drop them in the chat. But if not, just sit back and enjoy And hey, you might even want to take out a piece of paper or a canvas and create your own art. This is a contemplative practice as we just kind of get into this theme of hope. So I'm just going to start drawing. I'm going to start off by drawing a horizon in the background. Let's see, what brush? Yeah. A lot of times when people think about hope, first of all, I'm going to draw a dark landscape. So let me take my watercolor brush and I'm going to do a really dark blue, because the theme, the color of Advent is blue. I'm going to start with a really dark sky on the horizon. So this is kind of a nighttime scene. Using a big watercolor brush. Then I'm going to do a little lighter blue for the ground. I like this watercolor brush because it has a nice texture to it. This scripture, one of the scriptures for this week from the narrative lectionary is the story of Jeremiah. And a lot of times when we think about hope, we think about something way off in the distance. So I'm going to draw some perspective lines that kind of go back into the distance here. I'm going to draw a landscape. Now the story of Jeremiah is one where Jeremiah was a prophet, and he actually witnessed the destruction of Jerusalem. It's a pretty horrific story when you think about it. And at one point in Jeremiah's life, he was thrown into a pit. So I'm going to draw a pit right here. So kind of creating a harsh landscape. So put a pit right there. Zoom in a little bit. And this pit is kind of like a well, right? Like a cistern. So let's make it look like it's made out of blocks. How's that? Take a little pastel brush, just get a little texture on this thing. direction. Okay. Run that out a little bit. All right, how we're doing. So there's a pit. And the thing about this landscape is, even though there's a little well, I want to make it look like it's really dry and barren. Because, man, when you read through the prophets, the Hebrew prophets, there's always a lot of, or often there's a lot of metaphor and imagery of Israel feeling like they're in a dry and barren land. Like the water is dried up and hope is lost. So I'm gonna try to make this look like it is. Just, you know, like that cracked desert landscape. Well, that's kind of cool. Hey, if anybody's listening, can you hear my music playing? Because I can't hear it, but when I was doing my test drives earlier today, it was playing just fine. So leave me a message if you can hear I've got some chill music playing in the background. I'm supposed to have some chill music playing in the background. It looks like it's going, but let me know if you can hear it and if you're enjoying it. Okay, so I'm just making these crack lines kind of go back into perspective, into the distance. Of course, as they go back, they'll get more faint and just kind of disappear into the mist in the distance. All right. All right, that's kind of cool. All right, so here we have this kind of a bleak picture of a barren landscape. Let me put just a little bit of highlighting on the top of this cistern. Give it just a little bit of depth, but it's nighttime, so you don't have high contrast, right? So I'm thinking about like Jeremiah. If he's at the bottom of this pit, you know, it seems pretty hopeless, like all hope is lost. And when we think about hope in our culture, we tend to think about hope. Let me put this on a different layer. We tend to think about hope as something that we're looking forward to, that's out there on the horizon. A lot of times in the past, I have drawn hope as like a sunrise on the horizon. And so hope is something that's out there in the future that we're looking forward to, that we're hoping for, right? Well, this week I read a book called Mystical Hope by Cynthia Bourgeault, and I highly recommend it. You can Google it right now. Mystical Hope, Cynthia Bourgeault, Bourgeault. She's a wonderful teacher. I've read other things by her. But this book was talking about how hope, true hope and mystical hope, the hope that's really presented in the scripture, is not something that that's out there outside of us. So what if hope looked like this? I'm going to try something here. Let me open up a new layer. I'm going to make make it a hard light layer. And what if hope actually is something that bubbles up from inside of us and pours out of us. And so what I'm going to do, draw like this. Maybe I need to make these letters a little thicker. It's kind of cool. Oh, great. Thanks, Brian. I can hear the music. The cracks create so much depth. Music is nice too. Oh, excellent. Thanks, Brent. I'm glad you guys are here. So if any of you are interested in the technical side of this, what I'm doing right now is I created a layer with a blending mode of hard light. And so anything that I draw here, you'll still be able to see a little bit of what's underneath it. Just kind of a nice technique, which really helps me with the effect that I'm going for. So I want to try to imagine that hope is something that bubbles up, not from ourself, like we're not the source of hope, but it is the presence of God in us that bubbles up from within in the midst of the darkness, in the midst of the pain. I think that's kind of cool. So here we have hope. And so what I'm imagining here is that this is like water. And so let me put some like reflection lines. So I'm imagining that this cistern is actually now filled with water. And it's pouring out and overflowing from within. It's kind of a cool thought. So what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to paint like water reflections. So that's my goal, my next goal here. So if I go silent, it's just because I'm trying to figure out how to make this look like water. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. And this one I'm going to set to multiply. I'm going to use an airbrush. And I'm going to imagine that this water is rippling out it's causing ripples in the water, right? In the multiply blend mode, lets you shade, and it just darkens what's underneath it, but it doesn't actually like cover up the details of the layer. So that's kind of cool. Let's see if I can get my shadows to match the ripples in the letters that I created. That'll kind of help with the illusion a little bit. Maybe. It's kind of fun. Just chilling out, painting, because it's Advent. The last time I did this kind of live stream was actually during COVID, because we were all in lockdown, and we had nothing else to do. So tonight I realized that, you know, people are busy, and who wants to sit and watch a guy paint? But those of you who are with me, glad you're here. And if you are watching this later, I don't blame you. It's just an experiment. I wanted to do it just because I wanted to do it, you know? So let's see. My biggest challenge is to not freak out because people are watching, but to just enjoy the contemplative practice. So I don't want my concentric circles to be too perfect. So let's make them wobble a little bit. Right, that's starting to come together a little bit. Let's put some shadow here in the water bubbling up. Yeah, so I think if I put my multiply layer over that. See, with multiply, the more you go over it, the darker it gets. This is relaxing. Oh, Brent, thanks. I'm glad it's relaxing for you. It's relaxing for me, that's for sure. Okay, so now I've got that layer done. That's like the shadows of the ripples. I'm going to create a new layer. And this one is going to be called overlay. And it's going to create some highlights. Start big. But again, it doesn't affect the blacks or the whites, the overlay, and so it lets you keep a little bit. Although, you know, let me just try something. I think what would happen if I switched it to hard light? Yeah, let's do hard light, because I do want to cover over the black a little bit, just a little. So at this point, I'm just trying to get that sense of the highlights on the water. just using an airbrush here for my brush. So we need to get a little bit going back here. We see the whole picture now. It's kind of cool. I think what I need to do is with this layer, I want to label this hope so I don't lose hope. Okay. I'm gonna layer that hope. And if I drag that down to the plus sign, it'll copy it, move it down one, and switch it to multiply. Oh yeah, that's cool. See how that just added a nice little drop shadow under there? It helps you read that a little bit better maybe. And so, let's see. Hard lights. Let's do one with overlay. And let's come to a brighter white. Still an airbrush. I think I want to highlight the lettering a little bit. How are we doing on time? 7:27. Okay, I think we're doing good. Planning to do this for about an hour tonight. Okay. Now, that's kind of cool, but I was also thinking of something else. That water is a source of life and hope in a dry land, that's for sure. But what brings hope in the darkness? Aha, glad you asked. This is where we come to a complementary color of a nice yellow, an airbrush, make sure I'm on the, yeah. And something else that Cynthia Bourgeot was saying in her book. There we go. Is that the light, it's not just water that springs up inside of us, but it's actually also the light. So there's this flame inside of us that is the light of God inside of each one of us. Nice orange going on the outside of this flame. And then what I'm going to do is take and duplicate this flame and do it as an additive and do a filter of Gaussian blur, which will let that just have a nice glow to it. And I think I might just do a tiny little bit. No, I'm not going to do that. And let that glow a little bit. And then I'm going to do an overlay layer. I'm going to let that light illuminate the rim, so that's going to really light up the rim of this. Zoom in a little bit. Maybe choose that yellow. Really illuminate the top of the water there. Just lighting up the rim of that. These shadows right here, they will stay dark. But then I can come in here and I can start putting highlights on the water. So if I just do a little bit of blur. Yeah, there we go. So we have hope both in water and in light. But there's one more thing I want to do. First is take a drink of water. Is that now that I have this light back here, well, one thing I want to do is actually darken up that sky in the background. Give a little bit more contrast to it. But an important thing to remember is that our hope is that, we're not alone. in this. And so there's something else that we need to put out here. That there's a lot of people who feel like they're in a pit right now. A lot of hopelessness in the world for different reasons. When you're down in the bottom of that pit, you can feel like you're all alone. That's for sure. I'm just randomly putting different cisterns out across the landscape. You can probably guess what I'm going to do next. Is first of all, going to create the hard light and just remind us that that water is that love of God, the mercy of God, as Cynthia Bourgeau calls it, is inside each of us. And it overflows. And it actually connects us. That we're all swimming in the water of God's mercy, God's love, God's chesed, so I just want to show that all of these cisterns are actually connected as we're overflowing. And the more that we overflow the love of God and recognize the overflow of God's love in our lives, the more we realize that we're actually all connected to each other in it. So that's kind of cool. Let me put one layer in here with a little multiply action, just to give some shading. Connect all these things together. And now it's time for, you guessed it, everybody has their own connection with God, the source of light. And we are 1 billion points of light in the universe, burning from the source of God's mercy, God's Hesed, and when all of these lights burn, it lights up the darkness. Which is pretty cool. And then I'll give a little layer of overlay for this one. So we can do a nice little glow around each of these little flames. It's kind of cool. And so there you go. I think so. What I've got going on here is the fact that in the midst of it all, we are not alone. God is with us in the midst of the darkness. And we are actually all in this together. And that is our hope. So let me just create one more layer. I don't know, what do you think? I'm going to leave the hope on the horizon because Bourgeois also does say that ultimately this kind of hope of she calls it giving up the egoic need for something that is outside of us, like we are deficient, but that when we can die to the need for that and understand that we have all that we need as God is within us and God is sufficient for that, then our hope springs up, and together the world is moving toward that eventual eschaton, if you will, where, like Jeremiah talks about, where justice and righteousness will prevail on the earth. But this is what I got for hope. So I'm going to just go ahead and sign this. For Advent. So I'm gonna actually put in here live stream hope 11/28/23. Boom. All right. That's it. I'm going to come up here. Hey, thanks for joining me. That took, 45 minutes to create that, and super fun to make. Wasn't exactly sure how it was going to turn out or what I was going to do. Oh, Brent, demonstrating Romans 12:6. Yeah, you bet. That's awesome. Thanks for connecting that. I'm going to post this piece of art on my different social media channels. And if you're watching this later, hope you'd enjoyed it. And I'm going to do it again next week on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And next week we are going to be drawing peace. So until then, may your week be filled with hope as we move forward to peace.